In the quiet town of Everwood, nestled deep within the American heartland, lived a woman named Evelyn Sanders. In her late 40s, Evelyn was known throughout the town for her kind heart and her unwavering sense of duty to those around her. She had lived alone for many years in a modest, two-story house on Maple Street. Despite the solitude, she filled her days with purpose, working at the local bakery, volunteering at the church, and caring for her beloved garden that seemed to bloom endlessly, no matter the season. Evelyn's life, though simple, had not been without its share of pain. Years ago, she had lost her husband, Robert, to a sudden illness. His death had left a void in her life that she filled with work and service to others. But the deepest wound came from the disappearance of her younger brother, Matthew, who had left home in his 20s and never returned. The memory of Matthew lingered in her heart like a ghost, a constant reminder of what she had lost and the family she longed to find again. One crisp autumn evening, as the golden leaves fell softly to the ground, Evelyn was walking home from the bakery after a long day. The air was cool, with a gentle breeze that whispered through the trees. As she passed the small park near her house, she noticed a man huddled on a bench, shivering under a thin, tattered coat. He was an older black man, his face lined with the weariness of years spent on the streets. His name was Isaiah Turner. Isaiah had once been a proud man, a war veteran who had served his country with honor, but the war had taken more from him than he had ever imagined. After returning home, he found it difficult to adjust to civilian life. The horrors of war haunted him, and he struggled with nightmares and memories that refused to fade. Over time, he lost everything: his family, his job, and his home. The streets became his only refuge, and he wandered them for years, becoming invisible to the world around him. Evelyn's heart ached as she looked at Isaiah. She saw in him the same lost look she had seen in her brother's eyes the last time she saw him. Without hesitation, she approached the bench and sat down beside him. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her voice full of warmth and concern. "You look cold. Would you like to come to my home for a warm meal and a place to take a shower?" Isaiah looked at her with a mixture of suspicion and surprise. He was not used to kindness from strangers. Life on the streets had taught him to be wary of others, to keep his guard up at all times. But there was something in Evelyn's eyes, a sincerity that made him feel safe. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "Thank you, Mum," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "I'd appreciate that." They walked together to Evelyn's home, the small house on Maple Street that had seen so much joy and sorrow over the years. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and the soft glow of lamplight. Evelyn led Isaiah to the bathroom, where she had already drawn a hot bath. She handed him a set of clothes that had belonged to her late husband, Robert, clothes that were clean, warm, and still carried the faint scent of lavender. "Take your time," she said gently. "I'll make us something to eat." While Isaiah soaked in the bath, letting the warmth ease the cold from his bones, Evelyn busied herself in the kitchen. She prepared a simple but hearty meal: chicken stew with vegetables, freshly baked bread, and a slice of apple pie for dessert. As she cooked, her mind wandered to her brother, Matthew. She wondered where he was, if he was still alive, if he had found any peace. She hoped, as she always did, that someday he would come home. When Isaiah emerged from the bathroom, clean and wearing Robert's clothes, Evelyn smiled at him. He looked like a different man, the weariness in his eyes softened by the warmth of the bath and the kindness of a stranger. They sat down together at the kitchen table, and for a while they ate in silence, the only sounds the clinking of silverware and the ticking of the old clock on the wall. After they had finished eating, Evelyn offered Isaiah a place to sleep on the couch in her living room. "It's not much, but it's warm," she said, handing him a blanket. Isaiah accepted gratefully, but as he lay down, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He was not used to being in someone else's home, not used to the kindness that Evelyn had shown him. He felt vulnerable, exposed. His fears were not entirely unfounded. That night, while Evelyn was in the kitchen cleaning up, the doorbell rang. When she answered it, she was greeted by the sight of two police officers standing on her doorstep. Her neighbor, Mrs. Perkins, a woman known for her nosy tendencies and quick judgments, had called the police after seeing Isaiah enter Evelyn's home. "There's a suspicious man at Mrs. Sanders' house," she had told them, her voice full of concern. "I think you should check it out." Evelyn's heart sank as the officers explained why they were there. She quickly assured them that Isaiah was her guest and that there was no need for concern. "He's a veteran," she said, her voice firm but calm. "He's been through enough. Please, just let him be." The officers, seeing the sincerity in her eyes and hearing the quiet authority in her voice, apologized and left. But the encounter left both Evelyn and Isaiah shaken. Isaiah felt the familiar sting of prejudice, the sense of being unwanted, even in the home of someone who had shown him kindness. Evelyn felt a deep sadness, both for Isaiah and for the world they lived in, where a man like him could not find peace even in a place of refuge. That night, as Isaiah lay on the couch, sleep eluded him. The events of the evening had stirred up memories he had long tried to bury: the war, the loss of his family, the years spent on the streets. He felt an overwhelming sense of hopelessness, a feeling that he would never escape the shadows that had followed him for so long. In the morning, Evelyn found him sitting on the porch, staring out at the quiet street. She sat down beside him, offering him a cup of coffee. "I'm sorry about last night," she said softly. "People can be quick to judge what they don't understand." Isaiah nodded, but he didn't speak. The words seemed to catch in his throat, as if he were afraid that if he started talking, he wouldn't be able to stop. But Evelyn's presence, her quiet strength, made him feel safe enough to finally open up. He told her about his life, his service in the military, the things he had seen, the things he had done that haunted him every day. He told her about his wife, Linda, who had left him when the nightmares became too much to bear, and about his daughter, Jasmine, whom he hadn't seen in over a decade. He spoke of the shame he felt, the sense of failure that had driven him to the streets. Evelyn listened quietly, her heart breaking for this man who had lost so much. She thought of her brother, Matthew, and how he too had been lost to the world, how she had failed to bring him back. In Isaiah, she saw a chance to make amends, to do for him what she could not do for her brother. "You don't have to carry this burden alone," she said gently. "Let me help you." Isaiah looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and hope. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "You don't even know me." Evelyn smiled, a sad but tender smile. "Because everyone deserves a second chance," she said simply. "And because I know what it's like to lose someone you love." And so began a journey of healing, not just for Isaiah, but for Evelyn as well. She offered him a permanent place to stay, turning the spare room that had once been her brother's into a new home for Isaiah. With her support, Isaiah started to rebuild his life. He began attending therapy at the local VA center, working through the trauma that had haunted him for so long. Slowly but surely, he started to regain his sense of self, the man he had been before the war. Evelyn, too, found herself healing in ways she hadn't expected. Her relationship with Isaiah brought a new sense of purpose into her life, a sense that she was doing something meaningful, something that mattered. She threw herself into helping him, not just with his therapy, but with finding work, reconnecting with his daughter, and reclaiming his place in the world. The search for Jasmine became a central part of their lives. Isaiah had not seen her since she was a young girl, and the years of separation weighed heavily on him. With Evelyn's help, he began to search for her, contacting old friends, searching online databases, and even placing ads in local newspapers. It was a long and difficult process, filled with false leads and dead ends, but Evelyn refused to let him give up. Finally, after months of searching, they received a lead that seemed promising. A woman matching Jasmine's description was living in a nearby city, working as a nurse at a local hospital. The news filled Isaiah with both hope and fear. Hope that